one more session on agentic AI. I was going through since morning. I saw so many sessions. I felt like my session is at 2 p.m. By that time, everybody will be bored talking about agentic AI. So I'm going to keep it simple, a bit realistic, and try to make it a little bit interactive as we go through this playbook. So today's idea was to have a session that goes from a little bit of basic, talks about real life examples, and bring our experience of introducing agentic AI to enterprises and how leaders have been successful in their individual organizations in the pockets where agentic AI has been implemented. So that's the quick snippet of what we're going to talk about. So again, we're consultants, need a company overview. I'm not going to talk about it. 12 years, all things data and AI. Moving on, evolution of AI agents. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a basic here. Talk about how has AI evolved throughout the years, and given the fact that we were one of the earliest adopters of applied AI when we started in 2013, we've kind of seen the whole paradigm. Starting with, although it's called single task AI, it's basically if then else. One program, one task. Then multitask AI, where one program can essentially do a couple of tasks, or maybe 3 tasks. An example being OCR. You look at images, you recognize text, and you're able to decipher it for particular fonts. So that was the earliest OCR that came into existence. And then deep learning. That's when we saw a lot of activity in the market where AI was able to detect patterns. The simplest example being self-driven car, where thousands of driving patterns were fed in, and you had Tesla Copilot coming into existence, right? And then since November of 2022, large language models, where AI is able to understand and generate content in a human-like manner. So that's when large language models came in. But they were still horizontal, and in the last, I would say 2 years, we have seen multiple adaptations of large language model, where the domain context has been fed in, and you have now specific large language models being built for specific domain workflows. So that's the one where we have AI tailored for specific industries. And the next layer is AI agents. You plan, you reason, you act, and you self-learn. So that's the evolution of AI. I'll quickly go to the levels of autonomy, and here I'll make it a little bit of interactive because this could become a little bit controversial. You may have different opinions about L2, L3, what falls out there. So I'll try to make it a little bit interactive. So starting with L0, these are basic RPAs. You have a task, you have a logic, you do that task. Then comes L1, which is adaptive cruise control. If you want to compare the car analogy, and this, I'm just using all the different levels of autonomy with a car being an example. This is like a code co-pilot. You explain a particular task and a code is generated. This is reactive, and this is the L1 version of what you call a co-pilot. Then comes L2s and L3s, and here I feel there might be difference of opinion. I put partial in L2 and conditional in L3. Partial is primarily where an agent can do a chain of events based on predefined tools. The Tesla Copilot, and again, the Tesla Copilot has seen tremendous advancement in the last few months. I don't know how many of you have used the Copilot, but it can do a bunch of things which it could not do like a year ago. And the second L3 is conditional, which is basically it can react to a particular situation and operate. So the lines are blurring between L2 and L3, but an example of L3 is the BMW traffic jam assist. I don't know how many of you have seen this. If you have the BMW map open and it sees a lot of traffic, it will adjust automatically. It's not adaptive in a way that it just adjusts based on the car in front of you, it will also take its own decision. So it's a little bit different than adaptive. The lines are blurring between partial and conditional. So I'm assuming some of you are using these features and can have a different opinion. So I'll just try to open it up for some of you. Who do you think partial should be L3 versus conditional should be L2? Any thoughts? And this is basically everybody has a different viewpoint around it. We felt partial is the first step of going into conditional, hence we kind of kept it that way. But based on how things are evolving, they can just merge as well in the coming years. I'll move on. The next level comes the geofence to AMO. These are basically autonomous vehicles driving based on specific designs, ODDs. But these are human monitored. Some of you who have gone into a Waymo, there are cameras and a call center agent monitors everything that you do inside the car. So these are autonomous. The last level here is what we call driverless, and this is the robo-taxis that we've been talking about, launched in Austin a few months back. A couple of incidents have occurred, but in our opinion, this is that theoretical agent that can proactively understand problems, create tasks, execute, and operate almost independently. It's almost like an agent running a business unit independently with tasks getting developed, executed based on the need. We haven't reached that stage yet, but that's where the future is inclining towards. So these are 5 levels of autonomy that we are seeing. What I'm going to do next is, with this background in mind, kind of talk about what does it mean for our businesses. What I have here is 2 layers. You've got examples of disruptors who have already taken the step forward to have agents drive their business processes. And then at the bottom, you will see the existing large behemoths who are doing similar businesses. So let's take a couple of examples. I'll take insurance. I'm an insurance guy. I'll take insurance. I'm sure you all have heard about Lemonade. Now they have agents available that can bind policies, process a claims within 3 minutes, 0 human touch. These are agents that stitch together a lot of tasks together. Compared to an Allstate, and I'm a lifelong Allstate customer, I have a bunch of policies from Allstate, and that's why I put it out there. You still go through a level of human-guided processes that takes time to get your claim processed or a policy binded, etc. Right? Similarly, I'll take the example of Stitch Fix. Any of you have used Stitch Fix? Great. I used it as well. It's fascinating the way it will get your preferences, personalize your stuff, and send it to you. You have an option to pick one, pick all. If you pick all, you get a 25% discount. If you don't pick all, you can keep, and they actually send you a return label as well. You can send them back. So it's completely revamping the way merchandising decisions will take place. Now let's talk about Macy's. It's still getting operated the way you go to a store, you have got some guidance provided, but you will feel that you are kind of lost when you see the store up front. So that's an example where future of shopping will get changed. And then finally, I'm not going to talk about Runway. I'm sure all of you are using Runway. It creates ton of videos. It's beautiful, sleek, prompt. You can modify video, you can create video. And in fact, a movie has been created recently using Runway. And then compare it to a Paramount. Still human-driven processes which are led by editors. Now, what does it mean? The disruptors are creating a completely new way how you're going to operate. And the existing behemoths are now at a stage where they are thinking, okay, should I be adopting all these processes? Is it easy? I'll come to that. But prior to that, there's been a study done, and it's at the bottom. It talks about if these processes that has been adopted by these disruptors, asset light to begin with, it was easy for them to kind of adopt all these processes. But then if these are now transposed to all these large enterprises, for every dollar spent, the expectation is that you will have around $3.5 as ROI. But is it easy to kind of bring them in? And that's where I'm going to spend the rest of my speech. The challenges. There are two kinds of challenges. You have technical challenges, and then you have the organization. You have to take all of them into consideration. Coming to technical challenges, it's obviously the data foundation. You need data to have an AI strategy. You need the foundation to be in place. You need to address quality. You need to address drift, data silos. It's extremely important, and that's where the challenges lie for large enterprises. It's not that easy. Secondly, how do you have agents talk to your legacy systems? This is a big challenge. It's beyond normal APIs. I know there are a lot of protocols are now coming up. You have MCP, you have A2A getting launched, but the problem still resides, how do you connect to your legacy platform? So that's another one that you need to solve. And then finally, the operational triad. You need scale, you need reliability, and you need security. A simple risk can escalate depending on the errors, and it can compound significantly. So it's extremely important that you get those right from a technical standpoint. Now I'm going to switch to the organizational challenges, then GRC, governance, risk, compliance. You have those processes, needs to be put in place, especially when you're dealing with large enterprises who's got a lot at stake. The next point, and this is where a lot of decision making right now are getting stuck, which is it's the ROI. What's the real ROI? Usually when you do an ROI, you will do an as-is process. You will do a to-be process. You will look at a certain amount of infrastructure costs. You will look at a certain amount of oversight cost from human, and then the time it takes to build it, and that creates the ROI. So getting the ROI right and putting every element of it at a task level before you kind of boils it up to a certain level and look at the overall process improvement, it's extremely important. And then finally, the human-centric transformation. There is no agentic transformation without adoption. And we have seen it time and time again. If the adjuster, if the contact center agent doesn't adopt the new platform, you cannot take it forward. So it has to be human-centric. So these are some of the challenges that exist leading to the playbook. And this playbook, and it's a simple one-slider. The whole idea was to kind of present it in a way that it's consumable. There are different nuances to it. And I'm going to talk through some examples that we have gone through in the last 10 to 12 months as I talk through this playbook. Starting with governance, it has to start with governance then technology when you are talking about implementing agentic AI in scale. You need to establish a cross-functional AI governance body. You need to have a risk framework in place. I've heard since morning that you start quick, do pilots, you do those activities. You can't stop doing them in parallel, but at the same time, thinking about your governance is absolutely critical, because you can do n number of pilots, you can do n number of ROIs, but at the end of the day, if you have to deploy something in production, you have to cross that barrier. So it's extremely important that you start upfront. So that's number one. The number two, this is again an interesting way how some organizations are thinking about it. It's the centralized agent-ready platform. In the last 15 months or so, the big question among enterprises is the operating model. How do you execute AI at scale in an enterprise? There are various operating models. A lot of enterprises are adopting a hub and spoke model. Your hub being a central governing body, and the spokes actually doing the execution. This is a little bit different. This model talks about the hub going beyond a governance body, but actually building assets that can be leveraged by the spokes. And this is extremely important for an enterprise to get the value of agents. Now, when you look at agents, I spoke about all the technical aspects, starting with workflows, starting with the users, the workflows, you go to the data layer and all the way to the infrastructure layer. When you're building agents at different levels, it's important to provide the foundation to the spokes. And what we are seeing a lot of enterprises doing is get the hub beyond governance. Have them build certain assets that can be leveraged. And the hub monitors, manages, and enhances those central assets that can be leveraged. It could be as simple as certain fine-tuned models. It could be as simple as a centralized platform. I'm not talking about a platform team, but I'm talking about somebody building assets that can be leveraged, and you have a chargeback mechanism. So that's one way where we've seen a lot of customers gaining success. Phased rollout. We talked about different levels of autonomy. We talked about L1, L2, L3. Start with L1s and L2s. Then you graduate to an operator level, which gives you more confidence. And then finally, again, I spoke about TCO and ROI. This is extremely important. The way you calculate the ROI is absolutely critical. You have infrastructure cost, you have monitoring cost, you have human oversight. And after this, I'm going to give you a quick example of a wealth management agent that we have implemented and how at a task level you can see benefits and how you aggregate them. I'm going to talk about that. But this is very critical for you to actually prove the benefits of agentic AI. And then, we talked about the human angle, upskilling your people, making sure the theme of agentic AI is human guided. Otherwise, the transformation is extremely difficult. So this is a 5-pointer playbook that we have seen work at a lot of enterprises. Obviously, this all needs to be deconstructed, broken down based on how your enterprises are shaped. But we've seen this work at a lot of places, so I thought of bringing this to this forum. Now, let's go to some real-life examples. A wealth management agent. Let's think about what a wealth manager does. You first collect information from your customer. You stitch it from getting additional information from different sources. You might have those information already in your CRMs, etc. You do analysis. Then you build recommendations. Then you execute. And then finally, you manage the portfolio, manage the relationship. And this is how an agent can do all these tasks together. You can start by capturing data, understand the customer preferences. It can go and talk to various information that you already have, or go to public information to fetch details that you need to do the analysis. And the analysis is basically running a bunch of ML models, getting the data out, and then creating a proper view by putting the context of that particular customer. And then based on that, you generate various kinds of models for the customer and take it to the client, understand their preference, then you execute. And execution could be how do you do e-sign, how do you do a trade file tickets and custodial orders, et cetera, et cetera. You can actually execute all of them. And then finally, you do the relationship management, reporting, drifts, et cetera, et cetera. And these are the levels of productivity acceleration that we have seen. And it varies from different tasks to different tasks. So essentially, when you are looking at an ROI, this has to be an aggregated of all the different levels and tasks where you see automation. See, recommendation, that's where you see a lot of benefits. That's where, a human had to manually create those recommendations. You see a lot of benefits there. Execution is one where you will see a lot of benefits. And then rest of the tasks, you will see 0 to 20% benefits. So, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to bring them together, keeping in mind the infra, the oversight, and the cost that you will play in terms of executing them. So that's, in a nutshell, a real-life example of a wealth management agent and the productivity gains that we have seen in the past. I'll end this session by talking about a platform. It's a small video that we have built for SDLC internally in our organization, giving it to our developers to kind of use and see what gains you get. It's an agent-driven platform where you can accelerate various facets of software development lifecycle. It's an interesting video. Take a look.
Under the hood, Codera leverages agentic workflows where human-guided agents execute software development tasks. These agents specialize in planning, reasoning, self-reflection, tool use, and function calling, as well as multi-agent collaboration to tackle complex problems. When given a task, the agent starts by analyzing it and breaking it down into smaller subtasks. Then, it finds the right utility to handle each subtask. And if it can't find one, it generates one on the fly. Throughout the process, Codera's human-guided agent will collaborate with you like a true pair programmer, constantly interacting and refining its approach based on your inputs to enhance your productivity and help you succeed. Once you give the go-ahead, it runs the tasks and gives you the final output. Imagine accelerating the time to completion of a task to as high as 85%. When we benchmarked across 100-plus tasks covering every phase of the software development lifecycle, we witnessed average acceleration in the range of 60 to 70%, resulting in more than 1,500 hours of saved effort. Now imagine that same rate of acceleration in a 5,000-person organization. It translates to over 5 million hours of effort saved annually, allowing developers to achieve so much more and focus on solving what truly matters. This is the mission we are after at Codera, bringing the mythical 10x developer to life and transforming the way the world builds software. Want to dive deeper? Get in touch with our experts for a full demo, and let's see how Codera can level up your development and modernization game.
Okay, so this is just a quick snippet of a platform that has helped us in the last 10 months or so in terms of executing a lot of different projects. So with that, it's a wrap on my session. Hopefully this was informative. Got a lot out of it. I'm happy to take a few questions. I know she's waiting here for the other session to start. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
I like your framework. I was wondering, when you talk about governance as the first thing in the framework, how much is that is aspirational versus realistic?
See, good question.
I'm coming from, an industry, being in the industry for a long time with big enterprises. So the governance word is not a good word.
It's a loaded word. When you talk about governance, it's fundamentally putting the framework in place in terms of the different steps in terms of how you do an intake process of an agentic framework, right? Which all parts of the business process can be agentified, which all cannot be agentified. There are different nuances to it. We at Quantiphi, we have created an 8-step process. And what we do, and we do it for all our projects internally as well, as and when a projects come in from different customers, we rate every project. It has to go through that governance process where, and there are a lot of consultants here, and I'm sure all of you know the word deal review, right? You go through deal reviews where you get approval. So what we have done in our internal process, we have put this governance for all AI projects where agents are getting created, where this has to be reviewed by our internal CISO and data protection team who has to approve it. There are clients who have adopted that framework as well, looked at that framework and felt like, oh, this is good for every agentification project. We can kind of use the same framework. So I hear you when you talk about governance. Might slow you down as and when you start thinking about it. And hence one of the reasons we put it up front, because that's the long pole, essentially, especially for regulated industry, it's a long pole. So you start early, do the other tasks in parallel, all the other things in parallel, but do not forget about it. We have seen a lot of projects not seeing the end of the day because you think about governance only when you're trying to go live and your project stop. Yeah. I hope I answered your question. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Vijay.
Oh, hi, sir.
I don't see there is, and the presentation was really well put, but I'm not able to see that evaluations fit into this framework or not, because like, as you see, there is observability which is coming into to the mainstream, and how you're going to change your prompt based on what you see running into your runtime, right? Like the proximity is very dynamics,
Yeah.
right? How are you going to change what you're observing with observability and getting to your changing the dynamics of your prompts, and then you're going to change the weights of your model, right? That is what I'm trying to see much more.
Evals, basically, you're talking about evals.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
See, that's
because
actually
because here the testing is not static,
Yes.
right? You need to understand that.
Absolutely. So evals are part of the entire process. To begin with, it ties back to the other question I had. When you put GRC's plan, you need to get the right evals in place before you even start executing. And this evals will automatically, as you said, these are not static. It'll evolve. And there are different platforms for evals going on. I mean, there is a lot of customer preferences as well in terms of how you run evals. We recommend a few, but more often than not, what we have seen, evals getting co-created with our customers. It can't be something that is picked and executed. It has to have the context of the business, the context of the users, and most of these projects that we are seeing are, at the end of the day, touches a stakeholder in the business process who's going to execute it or monitor it, human oversight, that what I'm calling about. So evals are continuously getting, as you said, these are not static, these are dynamic, but you need the business context to come in as you create those evals. So, but they're part of the governance as well as you continuously do self-learning. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, everyone.